I'm Jane Applegath. This is the Epic Vision Zone. What if playing it small isn't humility, but self doubt? And the boldest move you can make is owning your story out loud. And what if the real path to success isn't about becoming someone else, but finally being unapologetically you? Simone Knego is an international speaker, award winning author, and an unshakable confidence catalyst. Her mantra: you already have everything you need simply by being you. A two-time TEDx speaker featured on ABC, NBC, CBS, Entrepreneur, and Yahoo News, Simone is also the creator of the transformational real method, helping people rewrite their story and their potential. Known for helping high achievers go from unsure to unstoppable, Simone teaches clients how to build real confidence from the inside out. Her best selling book, The Extraordinary Unordinary You, is a heartfelt and humorous memoir that invites readers to follow their path, embrace their worth, and to lead lives rich with meaning and purpose. Simone co hosts the globally ranked podcast, Her Unshakable Confidence, with her daughter, Olivia, creating a powerful mother daughter duo inspiring women to ditch self doubt and step into their boldest, most authentic selves. With wisdom, wit, and real talk, they share actionable strategies, personal stories, and expert insights into moving listeners from fear to fierce. Whether she's summiting Mount Kilimanjaro, raising six incredible children, or navigating life's chaos, Simone leads with authenticity, heart, and a message that sticks. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be real. Welcome, Simone. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
Well, I often say it takes time to find the path upon which we're here to walk. So tell us a bit about your amazing journey to get to where you are today.
Yes, never would I have thought that this is where my journey would have taken me. I started off in accounting. I have both a bachelor's and master's, a CPA, and didn't like it. Practiced for a few years. I did many things. Went back to school to be a teacher. I flipped houses for a while. I went into medical sales. And along the way, I had six children. And that's when I really realized what I was passionate about through some volunteer work was sharing my stories. I didn't know for a long time that I had a story because I doubted myself so much.
Mhm.
But when I finally understood the impact, the power of a story is when I really found my purpose and my passion. And that is writing and speaking.
Hmm. Yes, I can associate with your path definitely because I come from a financial background. I was in the brokerage business. So, and the path weaves and winds and so on and so forth. And I read your bio, and it was very interesting how you said that you really resonated with people, and yet here you are crunching numbers. So yes, absolutely. I mean, I was dealing with people, but like you, I felt something. My intuition was telling me this doesn't jive with who I am. So kudos to you for continuing on your path, because a lot of us, we get frustrated, but we stick it out because of society or because of our backgrounds, et cetera, et cetera. But so I'm really curious now. You have created something called the Real Method. You created it to help people build confidence. So, what does it stand for, and how can it support someone who's struggling with self doubt and feeling stuck?
So when I created it, it was really about going back in time to see the things that I did to get me where I am today. And so what it stands for is respect yourself, embrace your failures, ask yourself what you want, and live without limits. And
Mm.
the reason I started with respect yourself was because I truly feel that I remember as a child, I was taught to respect my elders, my peers, right? But my teachers never once do I remember my parents saying the most important person to respect is yourself. And I truly believe the most important person to respect is yourself, because if you don't respect yourself, how can we expect other people to, right? And so I started there and thought, okay, that means setting boundaries, saying no, right? Doing all the things that it's really hard to do because we feel guilty as people. We feel that we have to be everything to everyone, and that's not realistic. So that goes into embrace your failures, which is exactly what it says, because we tend to think of failures as stop signs, right? If you failed at something, that doesn't mean you're a failure, right? It just means that it didn't work out in that moment. And you can move forward from that. What did you learn from it? Instead of saying, "Oh, I'll never try that again." What did you learn so you can do something a little bit differently next time? Then ask yourself what you want. I think this applies a lot to women, men as well. But I think that sometimes we go through our lives doing so much for other people, and we have forgotten who we are and forgotten what we want to do moving forward. And I can tell you, back to talking about where my path took me, I think I just did things because I thought I was supposed to, right? My
Mhm.
dad told me I failed organic chemistry. So my dad said, "You're really good at math. You should do accounting." I wanted to be an actress. That didn't happen. So really going back to, yeah, going back to asking ourselves what we want, I think is so important. And the last part is living without limits, because we limit ourselves on a daily basis. We tell ourselves that we're not good enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not smart enough. And those things are not true. Those are stories that we create in our head. And I think when we follow and we be real, when we're real with ourselves, we realize what we're capable of.
Yes. And that is the practice, as I call it. I always say life is a practice because we need to be reminded, like you're an individual that brings us back to what we need to be reminded about because of that programming that we might have had or things that have happened to us. But absolutely, and especially women, we fall into that, tending to other individuals. That tends to be in our nature. But self-respect and certainly loving oneself is the first and foremost, and it's wonderful that we're becoming aware of that now because we can teach our children that to respect and love yourself first. And so thank you for that. I love that process and that method that you have. And speaking of self-respect, you have often said that self-sabotage ends when self-respect begins. I love that. So, what does that look like in someone's day to day life?
There's so many times each day that we self-sabotage, right? We say no, we say yes when we mean no. We don't put ourselves up for a job because we think we're not capable of it, even though we know we have the skills, but the fear sets us back. There's so many things that we do on a daily basis that really is sabotaging our ability to move forward. And we don't even realize we're doing it. That's what's happening most of the time. I remember even the way we talk to ourselves is so important. So I remember one time I was getting ready for an event and my daughter walked in and I was basically talking so mean to myself in front of the mirror, telling myself that I had gained weight, I wasn't pretty enough, like I'm not going to fit in with these women, like why am I going? And and I'm sabotaging, like why am I doing this to myself? My daughter walks in and she said, "First of all, you're beautiful. Second of all, you need to stop because you're giving me a complex. How do you expect me to love my body when you don't even like your own?"
Mm.
And that really hit home because it was, it's obviously an example of sabotaging things. But when we talk kindly to ourselves, when we love ourselves and we really treat ourselves like our best friend, then I think so many things change.
Mm. Isn't that wonderful how our children teach us? And it's so wonderful that she showed you what you weren't aware of. Because you're right, the first and foremost is awareness. If we're not
Right.
aware, it's the unconsciousness that we, often um, use to either self sabotage or talk ourselves down or not take the risk, to step forward, to remain in our comfort zone. But yes, that's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. And I do believe that part of that is the repetition, and it's always the
Mm.
repetition. Yeah, because the repetition is, it's just like an athlete. You just keep repeating and repeating. You don't start out being the Olympic star or the top player in whatever. You practice. So thank you for that insight into your family and the story that you have, because I know that's going to resonate with a lot of individuals. Well, that being said, what are some exercises or tools that you've created to help people shift from self doubt to real confidence?
So I'll give you two. The first one I like to call drop the just, because
Mm-hmm.
again, talking about how important our words are that we say to ourselves, that we say about ourselves, the repetition part that you said. Also, if we're repeating things that are negative, we're going to believe them, right? If we're repeating things that are positive, we're going to believe them. So, the idea of drop the just is the way we talk about ourselves. For years, when I wasn't working, when I was a stay at home mom, I would say, "Oh, I'm just a stay at home mom. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
Rob's wife," justifying my existence. And that takes away our power when we put just in front of any word that describes ourselves. We're really limiting ourselves. And so, yes, I am a stay at home mom. I'm not a stay at home mom right now, but I am a stay at home mom. I am Rob's wife. I am a manager. I am an administrative assistant. Why should we feel bad about the things that make us who we are? And so that's one, because I think that's a key one when we talk about the words that we say about ourselves and to ourselves. And the second one is a little hack that I created, that it's a little gimmicky, but I like it because it works. And it's called Control Alt Delete. So
Mm-hmm.
just like we used to use back in the day to reset our computers when something wasn't working, Control Alt Delete would reboot the system. I use it for a mindset reboot, basically. So the idea that it starts with awareness. So the control piece is that when we have negative thoughts come in our head, which we will, no matter how confident you are, you're still going to think negative thoughts at some point. It's the idea that you can control them, right? So the thought comes in your head and you ask yourself, is this real, or am I making up a story? Am I trying to sabotage something? So that's the first part. The next part is alt, which is alternative. Instead of saying you can't do something, build yourself up. Yes, you can do something. Instead of saying, what if I fail? How about when I succeed? And the more we repeat things like that to ourselves, the better, the easier it gets. And the last part is delete. It's just like if you have a program that's like weighing down your computer, right? That you just, everything's spinning, something else in your life that you're just holding on to, but it's not serving you. Delete it. Delete, get rid of it, because you need to be able to move forward. So anytime I have a negative thought come in my head, that's kind of how I use what I use to move forward.
Mm. That is genius, Simone. I love that. I that's okay. So drop the just, which is, you're absolutely right. When you put that in front of something, it demeans you. It belittles whatever that comes after that just. And you don't think about that. That's an unawareness, because we use that a lot. So I love
Mhm.
that. Drop the just. And yes, because I do believe, like you do, that our words create our reality. It's the thoughts, the words, and then our reality. We create our
Mm.
own reality. And then that control alt delete, that is pure genius. And I love the way you wrapped the meaning into the control, but then the alt is alternative. What is the alternative? Oh, that's because then your mind starts to work, right? It's not how, why am I, it's all about the manifestation of
Yes.
your future or your reality. And then the delete is absolutely, let's move that from our thought process so that we can start putting in the positive. Thank you for sharing that. That is really great tools and exercises to use. I'll be using that all the time. So,
Thank you.
yeah,
And what's
absolutely.
interesting,
Go
yeah, and
ahead.
what's interesting with the drop the just, you'll start noticing how many times people say just about themselves. And you're like, oh, we got to fix that.
Yes, that's awareness, and that's terrific. I'm gonna use that when I see my niece and my sister next time. I'm gonna listen to them and say, drop the just, and just saying drop the just. That's a good mantra to keep in your head. Drop the just. I love it. Thank you. Well, what does it really mean then to respect yourself, and how can someone tell when they're not?
Respect, I really feel like respecting yourself is treating yourself like you would your best friend, right? Treating yourself to a level that you if you were your best friend, you wouldn't talk down to yourself. You wouldn't overextend yourself. You wouldn't feel guilty for self-care, right? All of these different things. And I think that when we respect ourselves, there is no guilt associated with it, right? When I climbed Kilimanjaro, I had so many people say to me, "Oh, you're going to leave your family behind? Um, don't you feel bad about that? Don't you think that's selfish?" And I'm like, self-care is never selfish. But it's interesting because that's the mindset we get. So when we don't respect ourselves, then we feel guilty about everything. We say yes to everything. We don't set boundaries. And then at the end of the day, we feel horrible because we're doing things that we really don't want to be doing. So every time we say no to something, we open the opportunity for so many fun yeses to come along.
That was wonderful what you just said. By saying no, we open the door to so many wonderful yeses. That is just, yeah, that's a takeaway for sure. Because you're right. And therein lies, interesting enough, in your story, the fact that be aware of who you surround yourself with.
Mm.
Because if you have those individuals that constantly say that, well, number one, they're unaware. They're not, living their true life because they're walking around with that guilt or that story or those emotions. But also, when you surround yourself with those people who go, good for you, I hope you have a great time. And wow, for me, when I read your story, I was like, wow, the courage to do that. I mean, I was like, even my producer husband said, wow, she climbed Kilimanjaro. Wow. I mean, it was a wow, not a, oh, what should she do with her family? I didn't even go there, but yes. So absolutely. That is, yeah, never, and for those individuals, you just really have to tune them out, and then find yourself your tribe, as I call it, or your go-to people who say, this is what I'm doing. And the others, you don't even have to tell. You can just send them a postcard for when you get back. And then they'll go, wow, you did that.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah. So why do so many people then who appear confident still feel like they're not measuring up inside? And this, I think, goes a bit to the imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I think imposter syndrome is an issue. I think that we never feel like we're enough. And we put up this facade because people have these expectations of us. And that was me for a long time. Because I had 6 kids, people thought I had everything together, that I had to have been so organized. And on the inside, I'm a mess, but I never let anybody know. I mean, my husband knew, but I didn't tell my friends because the expectation was that she can do it all. She can do it all. And so because I heard that over and over again, I felt like I had to. There was a huge part of my life that I didn't even cry because
Mm.
I thought if I cried, the cracks would open up and everybody would realize that I don't have it all together. And then I started realizing, what does it matter? I was at this women's event and they showed this video, and it was a Colby Calais music video, and it was about women taking off their mask, taking off their makeup, and really showing their true selves. And I literally started crying during that. And my friends looked at me and they did not know what to do. They were like, oh my gosh, she's the one we go to. Like, what do we do now? And I was finally revealing my real self, and it took me a long time to get there. And I was like, I never feel like I'm enough. I These are the things I struggle with. And they're like, oh my gosh, we had no idea, because I never let anybody in. And so I think that for a lot of people, they feel like they have to hold this facade up. They show up a certain way, but they feel horrible on the inside because they haven't dealt with what they struggle with, right? If
Mhm.
Who knows? I mean, it depends on the person comes home at the end of the day and tells themselves they're not good enough, and that's what they believe, but they go to work and they have to look confident because that's part of their job. So, I think so many people struggle. I mean, if you look at statistics, it's like 80% of people struggle with low self-esteem.
Mhm.
That's huge. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is, too, is that's why, like you say, the stories are so important because when you reveal your story, then others can relate to you, like you were watching the film and that resonated with you. So that's, I say it resonated, which is a frequency, but definitely it speaks to people who are needing to hear it. And maybe that was the universe, who came to say, wake up, because this is that you don't have to be everything for everybody. And I know we're all guilty of doing that at one point or another. But yeah, and this is the stories, right? So I can see full circle how you now this has become your passion, is to, help individuals realize this is where we need to be. And let's hear your story so that somebody else hears this and then they say, oh, yeah, I remember that. And now I feel like I always say Rumi has one of my favorite sayings: "Who you seek is seeking you,"
Mm,
and that's the individual who
I love that.
becomes your client, right? Because you're on the same wavelength. So, yeah, absolutely. That's why telling our stories is so important. So, thank you for that. Personal growth. What's a belief about confidence or worthiness that you had to personally let go of to grow?
I thought people were either confident or they weren't. I didn't realize that it was a skill that you could build. I would look at other people and say, oh my gosh, they're so confident. And not realizing that probably half of them actually weren't because they were struggling on the inside. And I didn't realize it was a skill. I really thought it was like a personality trait. But what I've realized is that it is a skill. And like any skill, you can build it. And it's so important that we focus on building confidence, just like we focus on fitness, mental fitness, physical fitness, that it's part of a routine so that we can build it. And and for me, part of it is positive affirmations. And again, I've harped on how important it is how we talk to ourselves. But it's very interesting to hear people say, well, I tried it and it didn't work. Well, how long did you
Mm.
try it for? Well, one time. I tried it one time and it didn't work. Okay, well, did you go to the gym one time and you were like super buff after that? Well, no. Okay, what? It's a practice. You have to keep going. You have to keep
Yes.
working on it.
Yes, it's an everyday practice. It's, even the great sages. I mean, and if you look at the Buddhist monks, I mean, well, they're an environment where they can do so, but they're praying all day long. They're practicing their meditation, their energy work all day long. Not that we do that here, but certainly there has to be times. And like you said, you have that awareness. And once that's peaked, then you can say, I hear myself, or I'll often hear myself say something and I'll say, oh no, words have power. Or I'll hear someone else say something and I go, nope, nope, take that word out. And they right away, they go, oh yeah, you're right, you're right. But so it's absolutely a practice. So was there any, what did that shift involve besides mantras? Was there anything else that you practiced besides the mantras and bringing the awareness that you
Yeah,
wanted
I
to
also
share?
do. Yeah, I do. I think gratitude is really important too.
Mm.
So I do evening gratitudes. I do my In the mornings, I do mirror moments. That's what my kids started calling them. So that's what I call them too. I really do think affirmations work. 10 years ago, I would have told you, no way. But again, it's a practice. And the more I do them, the more I'm like, wow, this has really been life changing for me. It's not just, it's how I feel now when I say something
Mhm.
positive to myself. Yes, I am going to do well. I do have this, and that to me is so important. But the evening gratitudes, I always feel like at the end of the day, there should be something that we're thankful for. And because that puts us in a great mindset before we go to bed. It doesn't matter how crappy our day was, but when we get to the end of the day and we say, wow, this happened today and I'm really thankful for that, then all of the other stuff kind of takes a back burner. And I think that helps me a lot too.
Yes, and the science in that is that the gratitude has one of the highest frequencies, one of the highest vibrations. So when you say the manifestation, that actually raises your frequency as well, because in science, I believe that we are an energy source. So we're definitely upping the volume. You know how they say great vibes. That's it,
Mhm.
it really does make a lot of sense when we have uncovered now so much of what the ancients knew all along. They just talked a different language, but now we've proven it, that we when we say these things, when we believe in ourselves, like you said, when you have those mirror moments, you start to shift your energy, whether you're tired or you're exhausted or you're frustrated or you're angry. Then you start to, even they say, if you hum, you can't think of something negative.
Mm,
So that's something interesting, because I didn't realize that. So you just start humming some simple tunes, or I go
yeah.
back to the days when I was at camp. Go ahead.
Yeah. That is really interesting. Another thing that I learned, which I was so bad about this for a long time, is writing thank you letters, just like a
Mm.
random thank you letter, not because you got me a gift. And I had actually someone on our podcast, and she focuses exclusively on gratitude. And she was saying the positive, not just for the person who receives it, but for the person that writes the letter. And I wrote a letter to my kid's teacher. She retired, and I have a child on the autism spectrum. With 6 kids, there is no easy going on. And she was so fantastic with all of the kids. And so I wrote her a thank you letter and gave it to her on her last day. And I ran into her in the grocery store. I've never seen her outside of school ever in the 15 years my kids have been going to that school. And so it was so random, but she started crying. She was like, "Thank you so much for
Mm.
writing that letter. It really changed that my entire day, and I will never forget your family." And it was just really special. So again, that idea of gratitude, you never know how it's going to affect someone else.
Mm. Yes, that just gave me chills. It's the act of recognition. People don't feel like they're recognized. It's like
Mhm.
Brendan Bouchard often says, "Did I live? Did I love? Did I matter?" And it's that last one that's so powerful, because we all want to matter, whether it's to our family, ourselves, our friends. And by writing that note to her, I think that's what it did for her. She said, "Wow, I mattered. I made a difference." Because,
Mhm.
she's a teacher, so maybe people just expect her to make a difference. But
Mhm.
that's wonderful, because, and that's when we give, we receive, right? Because that feeling, that must have just filled you with so much joy. And I don't know, how
Yeah,
did it make you feel?
absolutely. And it made me think of all the times where I could have done that. I don't ever look back in
Mm.
time and said, "Oh, I wish I woulda, coulda, shoulda." But I think about moving forward, how powerful that moment was and how I can make it happen again, because there are so many people that have positively affected my life that I can write them a letter and thank them for it.
Right. Yes, I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you for that story. See, story. It resonates
Stories.
and
Yeah.
it really makes a difference. So, challenges. You've raised 6 kids, and oh my gosh, kudos to you, Simone. I mean, that's a miracle in itself. You've climbed Kilimanjaro and navigated a lot of personal growth. So, how have those experiences influenced your message and your mission?
Really has completely changed everything. If I look back in time, would I've ever thought that I would have had 6 children? No. That we would have adopted 3 children? No. That I would have written a book? No. But so it really changed everything in my life, how I deal with other people, my level of patience that I have. When we brought Noah home from South Korea, he was our first adoption. He's 19 years old now, but he was an infant. He was 2 months old, and
Mm-hmm.
he cried 16 out of the 18 hours on our flight from Seoul to Chicago. And I thought I knew how to be a parent. I thought I was the most patient person in the world. And I learned a lot, right? So every, I I learned a lot. Every single thing that's happened in my life has shaped me into who I am now in a positive way. Yes, there were lots of really difficult days. There still are difficult days, but does that make me want to stop doing what I'm doing or change anything about my life? No, because everything that I've gone through and done has brought me to this moment in time. And I'm so passionate about helping other people and really sharing our stories and sharing the kids' stories so that people and being real about stuff. So my kids when they were little, especially the 2 youngest ones, Noah's from South Korea, Millie's from Ethiopia, and they'd be playing on the playground and they've all kinds of questions, but kids would say, "Well, I don't understand how you can be siblings." And they're like, "Well, we're adopted, duh, because we taught them to self-advocate, like be proud of
Mm-hmm.
exactly who you are, that is so important." So really watching them has kind of shaped how I see myself, because what we were talking about earlier about how kids teach us things that we're not really aware of. And so much of what I do now is because of what I've learned from them.
Mm. That's fascinating. Yes, it's like we said earlier. Our kids teach us, and them coming from different countries. It's really interesting because I have a family member, and she's black, and obviously I'm white. But I always say that I introduce her as my sister. So people like it's really interesting to see their reaction. They're like, oh, okay. They don't know what to say. They're
Right,
just
right,
they don't say anything. This guy, all right. They don't have any.
right.
It's so funny. But that's seeing it from an adult point of view. But yeah, I could see with the kids. Yeah, you're so different. How can you be siblings? And I love that you said, well, we're adopted. Duh. I could just see the
Yeah,
kids saying that. Like, what
yeah,
do you
just
think?
say it how it is, say it how it is. And
Exactly.
you know and as adults, when you're talking about your sister, they don't know, people don't know what to ask, right? Or they feel like we can't ask the question. And I always said to
Mm,
people, if you have a question, ask me. Don't make any assumptions and don't start off with something negative. If you have a question, ask me and I'm happy to answer it. And I've found that, again, moving forward like that has been really helpful, so that people, because they want to ask, they do, they
yeah.
really want to know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
um, we've had that
Yeah.
at dinner before, where we're sitting out at dinner and people, they're looking from all the tables because we're having so much fun with 6 kids, and they really want to know. And sometimes we've had a few people come up and say, you have a very beautiful family. Are these all your children? Yes, they're all our children. So
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Ask the question because my dad was always famous for that. I mean, he would just walk up to strangers and talk for hours and ask
yeah,
questions. But what it does is it sparks curiosity. And
Mm.
curiosity is the core to creativity. So never stop being curious and to learning and gaining knowledge. It's curiosity. I'm always like, well, why? Or how did that happen? Or I'll work at the issue backwards. So yes, I'm always curious. Like I'll say, oh, you have an accent. Where are you from? And some people are embarrassed, like especially if they're Hispanic. Which is ridiculous. My mom was Mexican, my dad Canadian, and now I live in the US. So even though I don't look like I have any Hispanic blood in me, but I'll always say, "Oh, where are you from?" And then they'll say, "Oh, I'm from Mexico." Like almost like they're ashamed of it. And then I start speaking
Mm.
Spanish to them, and then they're like, "Oh, so you're Spanish too?"
Right.
It's like don't don't be ashamed.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
yeah, it's really something. But so stopping what's familiar, now this is something that we all fall guilty of. So what would you say to someone who feels stuck in their habits of proving, so pleasing and performing, but doesn't know how to stop? I know we touched on this somewhat, and you said that you were guilty of that you were always looking for ways to please everyone else. What is it that we could do or say besides the mantras to move us forward from stopping what is familiar?
I think understanding first that we're not broken, right? I mean, just
Mm,
because we are in this pattern doesn't mean anything is actually wrong with us. And but it goes back to asking yourself the question of what do you want? I mean, I can even say with friendships that we've had as couples that were just kind of toxic relationships, and we just let them go on and on and on, and then we finally had to say, like, is this something that we really want in our lives? And the answer was no. So
mm,
the next phone call was, yeah, we're not going to go out to dinner this Friday. And we think you guys are great, but our schedule is just really busy, and however we need to move forward, because we do feel like we need to be everything to everybody, and we just can't do that. So
mm,
it's asking yourself the question of, what do you want? Who do you want to do things with? What do you want your life to look like? And then start making small changes. It's one foot in front of the other. It is not a radical thing overnight. You don't just turn off the light and turn it back on again, and everything, voila, is different. And you're the most confident person in the world. And we'll say it a million times, it's a practice. So it's starting with the things that really bother you the most. Like, how stuck am I in this situation? How
mm.
can I work on that one situation and not try to tackle every single thing?
Right. So important, one step at a time. Yes,
Mm.
because we try to do the whole thing at once, and that's what gets us stuck again. Because
Mhm.
we just get overwhelmed, and we're just like, well, I'm just going to go back to what I was doing. But absolutely,
Mhm.
yes, one small step at a time, and then you start to build the road or the path to where it needs to be. So now I'm really curious about your book. And by the way, I love this title. It is so clever. Give us some insight into your best selling book, The Extraordinary Unordinary You. Follow your own path, discover your own journey.
So the book is all about realizing what you're capable of and recognizing that the little things you do every day matter. Again, I was someone who struggled for so long figuring out who I was supposed to be instead of who I wanted to be, right? It's who I was meant to be. And this book is a lot about that. I talk about the kids' adoption stories, I talk about climbing Kilimanjaro, and really the little things that I did, because I think the little moments matter so much. We often think of the big, glamorous moments. We think of the celebrities doing the work in the world, giving their money somewhere, and we don't give ourselves enough credit for the little things that we do every day. And so a lot of it is about that, because I'm a normal, unordinary person, because I truly believe all of us are unordinary, right? We're all
Mhm.
extraordinary people, but it's really bringing it back to the little things that we do every day change the world around us. So when we set this big lofty goal, I am going to change the world, right? well, tell me how you're going to do that, right? That's a huge thing to tackle. But if we talk about changing the world around us, the little world in our little sphere, then those steps lead to changing the entire world. And that's why I think it's so important we focus on the little things.
Yes, yes. And I love that once again, these are stories. And you said that there's humor in there as well. So I love that
Mm.
because, often we get so rooted in the seriousness that, we just like, oh, I need a break from all this. Because let's face it, the world is serious enough. So
Yeah, I mean,
humor is humor is really what we all need. A good break every now and then is healthy for all of us. But yes, and so is there any one portion of or any one story that you wanted to share from the book that resonates with you?
I will tell you a funny story. So
Oh, good.
and there's a lot of funny stories in there, but we I used to have a minivan. I told myself I would never have a minivan, but 6 kids, it's so easy to push the button, the door opens. Well, I was out of town and I was out of the country actually, and the car was parked in the garage, and I actually get a call from my husband, not related to this part of the story, but you'll see how it flows. Our youngest son was away at summer camp. My husband calls me and says, Noah was just bit by a snake. They don't think it's poisonous. They put him in an ambulance. I'll call you back.
Mm.
5 minutes later, change of plans. They're getting a helicopter to take him because it was actually a poisonous snake. His arm is swelling. And so, anyways, Noah did fine. Rob flew there. I couldn't get there because I was out of the country and there were no flights. It was like there was a strike at the moment. And so Rob flew up there. Noah was fine. He had to get like 16 vials of anti venom and he was in the ICU for
Mm.
3 nights. Probably one of the most
Yikes.
stressful times of our lives. But so we both get back from where we are. And because of his arm, we had to take him to therapy, physical therapy, because it was like locked in place.
Mm.
So we get into the minivan and I look back at him making sure that he buckles. And I'm like, why is there popcorn on the seat? Like, yes, with 6 kids, it can be a moving trash can, but I know I cleaned it before we left. So I look back at him again and he's buckled. So I start backing out and then it hits me. I'm like, get out of the car. Noah, get out of the car. And he's like, what? I'm like, that's not popcorn. That is the inside of the seats. So basically, a rat or two or six had gotten
Oh.
into the van through the what engine block and literally chewed on every seat
Oh.
of the car. And they actually totaled my car because a rat ate the seats. So, and when I
Oh
was
my
younger, I would have
gosh.
been so embarrassed about that. But, it's life. Life happens. And so you just have to be able to stand up and say, well, yeah, a rat ate my seats because my kids are kind of disgusting on some days. He had a
Oh
few
my
in
lord.
there.
Oh, that's terrible, but funny, I
Yep.
guess. I'm glad you
Yep.
see the humor in it. I would be like, oh my God, what next? Poor
Yeah,
Noah. It's like he's attracting all this bad
I
shit.
know.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Oh my lord. Did you get him to where he needed to go? I guess you had a second car.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
hoping.
We got in a different car. Actually, the insurance company said, "Oh, just why don't you just drive it over to so that you can see the adjuster?" I said, "Are you kidding me? I am not driving. Like, what if the rat jumps on my
Oh,
head and I get in an accident?" And they're like, "Yeah, good idea. Don't drive it. We'll come tow it."
oh,
And then
oh,
they totaled it, and that was the end of it. And I was like, "Okay, no
yeah.
more minivan for me."
Yeah. Well, see, you put it out there. So the
Exactly.
universe gave you exactly what you wanted. There's a good example of
Exactly.
it's listening, right? Like I say,
Yep.
it's always listening. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And it always says yes. Well, thank you for that story. It reminded me of a friend of ours, well, my sister, the black one, but I'll just very shortly because she had a rat in her car too, but she couldn't get it out. She thought she had, but long story short, because it goes on and on, but it's hysterical. So she thought she had gotten rid of it. She's driving the car, and lo and behold, there's the rat on the seat beside her. And
Oh
she's
my
like
god.
freaking out because she's driving and she doesn't want to bat it. And then this went on for days. I mean, she thought she got it out, and then it was on the windshield at one point. And one person stopped beside her and said, excuse me. And they're honking their horn, and she puts her window down. She goes, "There's a rat on your windshield." Oh my God. And she used the wipers. Nothing happened. Anyway, she finally got rid of it.
Oh.
Oh my God. It was just hysterical. We were killing ourselves laughing. And here she was like beside herself. She's like, I come in the
Yeah,
house, I shut the door, whatever. Anyway. Oh my gosh. Life is crazy, isn't it? I mean, but
it
that
is.
was, it's funny. I mean, I wouldn't hide
Yeah.
that story from anybody. I go, well, we had rats. What can I say? We're popular. I mean, people
Yeah,
love
right?
us, and so do animals, right? Well,
Yep.
thank you, Simone. That was really, I guess, funny. I don't know if you thought it was funny at the time, but it's certainly funny now. So
Yeah.
tell our audience where they can connect with you, and we'll have all this information on the bio pages as well.
So my website, SimoneKnego.com, which is, well, you see it on there, SimoneKnego. And I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You'll find me. My book is available on anywhere you can buy a book online. And my second book is actually coming out in February, which is called Real Confidence, A Simple Guide to Go from Unsure to Unshakable. And then my podcast is Her Unshakable Confidence.
Thank you for that. I love that title. Well, we'll have to have another chat then, because that's a fabulous title and topic as
Thank
well.
you.
So,
Yeah.
yes, really, your titles are very clever. So, if there was one message that you could share with the world, Simone, what would that be?
Well, I would say that you're not just anything. You're not just anyone. You're already enough. So stop waiting for someone else to validate you and start choosing yourself.
Mm, thank you. Very powerful. That has good resonance. And because we're here on the Epic Vision Zone, I have one last question. If your life were an epic story, which I believe it is, what would the title be?
I really like the unsure to unshakable. So I would say from unsure to unshakable, one small step at a time.
Mm, absolutely perfect. Thank you. Well, thank you again, Simone, for joining us here today. And once again, for information and to connect with Simone, go to the Epic Vision Zone bio pages where you will find all of her social media and direct contact information. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at Jane Applegath. Look me up at janeapplegath.com and like and subscribe to the Epic Vision Zone on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and other streaming platforms. Sending you so much love and gratitude. This is the Epic Vision Zone, the ultimate source for extraordinary transformations.